Hey everybody, and welcome back. So I have a question before I get into my discussion. Who had in their bingo card that Donald Trump would be the cause of the downfall of Alberta? And I'll get to that later. And the increased adoption of EVs and renewable energy. I didn't even see that. Like I thought Donald Trump was going to hurt the adoption, was going to uh, increase the time for adoption for EVs and renewable energy, even though there's been some indication that even with his rollback of EPA taking money away from subsidies for renewable energies, EVs, and everything else, that the market was still going above and beyond in terms of adoption. But what he has done now is gonna put the adoption on steroids. And I know a lot of you out there, especially Albertans out there, are saying, no, 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 this is why we should have invested. This is why we needed a new pipeline because, you know, what's going on with the war in Iran, the uncertainty in the markets, that we would have been able to meet the needs of the world. No, no, not at all. I don't care how many pipelines you put in, we would not have been able to meet the needs that the Middle East has been supplying for the oil needs for the world. We would have increased our revenue 100%. I'm not going to deny that. But at the end of the day, this is not good. The cost of oil, the the uncertainty, the stability, instability of the oil markets. This is what's going to move countries, people to the adoption of renewables and EVs. And it's already technically starting to happen. You're seeing the early stages of it right now. And I'm going to get to it. I'm going to show you a couple of examples. But Donald Trump, like bull in a china shop, is like destroying the world. But technically, and if you want to look at it in uh, um, better light, he's pushing us in a better direction. I could never have thought this, and I'm kind of glad. I've told this to many people. I've said this on my channel that the adoption is going to happen no matter what. The oil lobbyists, people who think burn oil, ICE vehicles, internal combustion engine, gasoline vehicles will be here forever. That's going to be another 50 to 100 years. I understand sometimes people have fear in change, especially when their job is tied to that industry. But this is where Daniel Smith should have taken the advantage of the oil prices to diversify their economy because it's 20%. The oil sands is 20% of their economy. When that disappears, not that's going to disappear 100%, but even if it goes down to 10%, even 15%, it will hurt them. They had record delivery of oil, but because of the cost of oil before the Iran conflict, they had a deficit in their budgets, even though they were producing more oil. This is why they should not be putting all their eggs in one basket, and they should see the writing on the wall, which I know they did, but they're thinking short term or stubbornness or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I think it's a bit of stubbornness and just ignorance in my mind. That's my opinion. So let's get to why it's going where it's going, and this is just the beginning. And I'm here for it to a certain degree. I wish we could have done it in a better way because a lot of people are getting hurt. Businesses, the cost of food is going to go up, but we could have done this transition in a better way. And the people who pushed against it are the ones that are at fault for this. So this is Australia. Okay, this is what's going on in Australia right now. Hundreds of petrol stations across Australia run out of fuel as Labor inks supply deal with Singapore. Hundreds of service stations across Australia have run out of fuel, with the federal government inking a deal with Singapore, one of the country's biggest source of refined petroleum, to keep supply of diesel and petrol flowing. A lot of countries out there that use more than they produce. They're not in the situation like Canada, U.S., Saudi Arabia, and all those other places, Venezuela, and things like that. They have to import, and this uncertainty, the Iran war, has hurt them. Even though we produce more than what we use, it's also hurting us. But at the end of the day, they're at a higher risk of catastrophe because they rely on other people. Concerns are now broadening the supplies of fertilizer and other chemicals, heaping more pressure on the Albanese government's leveraging of overseas exports of coal and gas in a bid to handle the crisis. The Energy Minister, Chris Bowen, told federal parliament on Monday that the 109 outlets in Victoria had run out of at least one grade of petrol, that there were 47 outlets in Queensland with no diesel and 32 without regular unleaded, and that 37 stations in New South Wales had run out of petrol. That's a problem, because that's can start panic within the public. The NSW Premier, Chris Minns, had said earlier in the day that 105 outlets in his state were without diesel. Bowman didn't share statistics of Western Australia, the Northern Territory, South Australia, or Tasmania. He also declined to say exactly when the government became aware of 6 shipments of oil not making its way to Australia, a fact he revealed on Sunday. Bowen again said any moves towards fuel rationing were not an immediate prospect, but said his department had undertaken prudent contingency planning and that significant powers in this regard had also been delegated to state governments. They're already requesting the public to work from home, not drive when you need to, don't fly anywhere unless it's an emergency. They're asking the public to conserve. But if it gets any worse, they're going to actually start rationing. So what do you think is going to happen when they start rationing? Even right now, their economy is going to really hurt. And it's even if the war ended right now in Iran, they're saying anywhere from 100 to 200 days before we can get back to full production. So we're going to be hovering anywhere from $100 to $120 a barrel, which is increased diesel, which is increased gasoline prices, fertilizer, and everything else. It's going to hurt the economy as it is right now. And then even reliability is still going to be hampered with that 100 to 200 days. So what do you think Australia is going to start doing? They're looking long term. They're going to say, we're not going to be caught with our pants around our ankles anymore. So they're going to initiate policies to increase the adoption of renewables and electric vehicles. They're a big proponent of Chinese adoption, EVs. BYD is starting to enter their markets. Renewables, wind and solar, they're a big proponent of that. There's been pushback internally, but this is going to quiet those naysayers. They've introduced a lot of wind farms with battery backup to deal with the problem of when the wind's not blowing. Same thing with solar. During the nights when the sun is not out and they require power, they've got grid type battery. This is going to increase their adoption because it's national security. Not national security only, but also their people to be fed, having jobs and everything else, so it doesn't affect their economy. Let's take a look at another example. Britain responds to Iran war energy shock by requiring solar panels and heat pumps in all new homes. The UK government on Tuesday introduced new rules requiring developers to install heat pumps and solar panels in all new homes across England, in policymakers' latest response to the economic fallout of the Iran conflict. UK minister say the Iran war and the largest supply disruption in the history of the oil market reinforces the need to leverage clean power as an energy security tool. The Future Homes Standard, a set of new build regulations for England from 2028, will establish requirements to ensure homes are built with on-site renewable electricity generation, the majority of which is expected to provide by solar power. The rules will also see homes built with low-carbon heating, such as heat pumps and heat networks. The government added that plug-in solar with homeowners can install on balconies would be available within shops over the coming months. The Iran war has once again shown our drive for clean power is essential for our energy security so we can escape the grip of fossil fuel markets we don't control. UK Energy Secretary Ed Miliband said in a statement. Whether through solar panels fitted as standard on new homes or making it possible for people to purchase plug in solar in shops, we are determined to roll out clean power so we can give our country energy sovereignty, he added. They said, we're done with this. We're done with the uncertainty that we're beholden to the producers. The dominoes are starting to fall. That's it. They're done. They're done with the uncertainty, being beholden to producers like the Middle East, U.S., Canada, to a certain Venezuela and everything else, Iran. That even if they were producers of oil, like here in Canada, okay, we produce more than what we use. We are still beholden to the global markets. We don't get a discount on oil. They definitely don't get a discount on oil because they don't produce what they use. But the problem is even here in Canada, worst case scenario, push come to shove, we'll be okay because we produce more than what we use. But England's push came to shove, no one would deliver to them because everybody would be looking out of their own people, better off for their own people. They will be stuck. Brownouts, rolling brownouts, heating season in the winter, farming for fertilizer, things like that for chemicals. So they're done with it. Same thing with Australia. Said we're moving on. This is what Donald Trump has created. A super hyperspeed path to renewables. And I couldn't have asked for a better outcome for this boondoggle of a war that he started with Iran to show people what we need to be doing. Now, as a Canadian, I understand what's going on in Alberta, that you've been fed lies, that this is the only path forward. We need to produce more and more oil. We need to bring it to the world market, which is understandable. But they should have also been diversifying. 20% of your economy is oil. Even Mark Carney right now, like in the back room, is going, this couldn't have worked any better than he thought in terms of to supercharge our economy to renewables. Instead of having to, he could technically just remove all hurdles that Alberta talks about for getting the oil out of the oil sands, and it would still fail. We would still be able to transition to renewables because the rest of the world is going to happen. So think about it this way as well. Australia starts to transition. England starts to transition. Not of all Europe, even Africa, okay? Because they're still beholden, especially the poor nations. Why build an infrastructure for oil when you can just put that money towards renewables? Especially China trying to get into the African market. They'll bring them cheap EVs. So when you have a market shifting away from oil, those gasoline vehicles that are already expensive as it is only going to increase in cost. And the EVs that are all pretty much at par, depending on how you look at it, are only going to get cheaper. So people are going to buy what's good for their bottom line. Nobody cares about Alberta oil anymore, or they will not care if you lose jobs. Because at the end of the day, they're going to say, why am I going to spend more, not only for the vehicle, but pay more at the pump just so an Albertan who works in the oil sands, who complains all the time how Canada screws you guys all the time, but my pocketbook's going to hurt. They'll say, forget it. I'm out. I'm going to buy an EV. I'm going to put a heat pump in. Forget natural gas. There will still be reasons for natural gas. There will still be reasons for oil, for production, for petrochemicals, fertilizer, things like that, but not at 20% of your economy. And you got to thank Donald Trump for this. You separatists who want to be part of the U.S., who went down to talk with officials from Donald Trump, he's the one who's going to destroy your province. So you have to thank him, not the federal liberals. Let's see how Daniel Smith handles this, but she knows this is not good. Even the oil companies know this is not good. You know, there's a famous quote in the show Landman. I know a lot of you watch that. That beautifully describes what's going on here.
Well, you want oil to live above 60 but below 90. And don't get me wrong, we're still printing money at 90, but gas gets up over $3.50 a gallon, it starts to pinch. It hits 100, every product in America has to readjust its price. $78 a barrel, that's about perfect. You know, it brings enough profit to keep exploring, but it don't sting as much at the pump.
So, this is not going to end anytime soon. This is only pushing people towards renewables and EVs. I wish the leaders, especially Daniel Smith, had listened to other people. This transition could have been good for Alberta. They could have used the revenue from what they generated from the oil patch to help transition Alberta to a strong economic power in Canada. But she's doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down on oil when everybody sees the writing on the wall. She never cared about Albertans. She only cared about the companies who have lined her pockets with donations and getting them what they want. And making you guys, squirrel look the other way about transgender, MAID. She wants to roll that back. Unfit books in the schools. Your healthcare is going down the toilets. Your economy is going to be gone in the next 10 to 15 years. I'm telling you, because you can see it right now. Don't tell me it won't happen, because it is. And she's wasted this opportunity. Well, let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments what you're going to be doing to make sure you're not reliant on overseas market oil or even domestic oil, because it's beholden to the overseas markets. And how fast do you think Canada can switch over to a renewable economy? Because it's going to happen. Even though people are going to go kicking and screaming, it will happen. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Take care. We'll talk later.